Good morning, my name is Oliver Tan and welcome to my video. Today I will be showing you how to disassemble a computer. Here's what we're going to be working on today. It's a basic desktop tower system. It's a clone by design, and basically when I say clone, it's IBM compatible since they're the ones who created the computer years ago that caught on to the mainstream. So without further delay, we'll go ahead and get started with the dismantling process. Let me explain to you the kind of tools we're going to need to perform this task. And we're going to assume that you already know the basic safety precautions, so we'll go ahead and skip that area. Okay, so here are the tools. Okay, here's the typical Phillips screwdriver. This is probably what most technicians are going to be needing when they're working on a computer. If you notice, it has a cross if you look directly at the pointed part of the screwdriver. Okay, and here we have the slotted type, or some people call it the flathead screwdriver. And it makes sense why they call it that way. It looks like the shape of a blade and it's basically just flat. And another thing is we have a couple of pliers. One of them is a multi-tool. There's probably a knife in here that we're not going to need, but it does form into a needle nose plier, which is useful at times, especially when you're trying to get into tight areas. And here's a typical mechanical pliers. Sometimes we're going to need it when there's stubborn nuts or screws that just won't give. So yeah, there are times that we're going to need this mechanical pliers. So basically that's everything we're going to need, and really this is probably more than enough what we're going to need to disassemble a computer. Okay, here's the computer that we're going to be working on. Obviously, first thing we need to do is unplug everything. Shut the power off and unplug everything. Okay, now danger is out of the way. We can go ahead and proceed to opening the box. Okay, first thing you need to do is face the back towards you. And here's our universal tool, a handy Phillips screwdriver. Basically, there's 4 screws in the back on a typical case. See where I'm pointing at? And the only thing we really need to take out is just 2 screws. When you remove these 2 screws, this whole panel slides out. And then it's just going to expose all the guts inside the computer. So here's what we're going to do. Face it towards you, the back, so that you have good access to the screws. And go ahead and unscrew it counterclockwise. Make sure you don't lose the screws. They're tiny. One thing that I would recommend is having some kind of a screw holder or some small part holder similar to this one. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, we can finally slide off this panel, the side panel. And be careful with this. Don't just slide it out and pull it, because there could be wires inside that are connected. If you notice, there's an exhaust fan on the side, and a lot of times, yes, they are connected, but for some reason this one's not. So, good thing. You can damage that thing easily if you're not careful enough. So here we go. You see the inner components. Now we can get right to complete disassembly. Okay, now that everything is exposed, you can see the fasteners are all readily accessible for the screwdriver to unfasten them. One thing that we really need to consider is what position is best for us to dismantle all those parts inside. We could leave it this way. This is a pretty good way to dismantle the parts and components, but the only problem is it's awkward. You don't really get good leverage, especially when you're pushing in the screwdriver like this. You're gonna have a force in the back against it. And the only thing dangerous about it as well is that if the components is removed, there's a potential danger in dropping them to the bottom. So some people recommend doing it horizontally. Okay, for today I'm gonna choose laying it down horizontally on the table. It's just easier that way since we're videotaping. And one thing that you gotta have in your facility is adequate lighting condition. It can get pretty dark in there with all the cables and the housing and stuff. So this is how we're gonna do it today. But we're gonna move the camera closer so you can see me working inside the computer. Okay, so here it is. Hopefully you have good visibility on everything that goes in here. What we need to do first is get rid of the cables. And after that, it's a lot easier to go ahead and remove all the peripherals or the accessories before removing the motherboard. So we'll go ahead and get started with the cables. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with the SATA cable, because this SATA cable can be removed. All the way out from the case. This serves as the highway for data between the motherboard and the hard drive. So to remove it, you just go ahead and hold it on both sides of the connector and you just pull it out like so. Some SATA cables though, they have a clip that locks it in place. All you have to do is squeeze it before you pull it out. So in this case, it doesn't have a locking clip, so I just pull it out. So here's one SATA. And here's the other SATA cable that goes to the optical disk drive. Let's take that out. Oh, this one does have a locking clip. So I went ahead and pressed it to remove it. So there goes all the SATA cable inside. And next thing you want to do is remove all of the power cables. And here's a power cable that provides power to the hard drive. If you notice, the cable goes directly to the power supply unit, or the PSU as we call it. Let's get some of the other ones out of the way. One from the optical disk drive. So now we got all the power cables that goes from the power supply unit to the accessories. And next thing we want to do is remove all these little wires. What they are wires that gives indicator lights, and also as well as switches in the front of the case. So like this one, this is the reset switch, and then this one I believe is the power switch, and the rest are light indicators. It shows us when there's activity on the hard drive, or when there's activity, or when there's power on the system. So it's pretty simple, straightforward. You just hold it by the connector and you pull it out. And this one gives a connector to the external USB slots. So there's two of them, one back here and one to the front. So got them all out. Shove them out of the way. And here, now we're gonna deal with the fan connector, the fan for the motherboard. But it's not really necessary to move it right away. But if you want to, you can take it out. Here, I will choose to remove this ATX auxiliary power supply, which supplies 12 volts to the processor. It gives stability for the processor to operate properly. So I got that out of the way. And this other one, you can see it's a big connector. Basically, it powers the motherboard as well as a lot of other things. So here, we'll take that out. This is what I squeezed. I don't know if you can see that. When you squeeze it on the top part of the connector, it opens the bottom locking mechanism. And I press that to pull it out. Okay, now it looks a little bit more bare. Okay, now we'll go ahead and remove the motherboard. As you noticed, I didn't take out the processor yet because it gets a little messy because of the thermal compound. So I'll leave it on there. I just have to be extra careful not to touch it, which is pretty simple anyways. So right now I can find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws that fastens the motherboard to the case. So I'll go ahead and unscrew those. But before I do that, maybe I should take out one of the single memory module that's in here. To take it out, you just press it firmly on both ends. Do you see the white tabs right there? I'm gonna push it down while pushing it away from the memory module. So here's one side and here's the other side. And once you press them away from the memory module, it's pretty much loose. You could just lift it up out of the slot. So there's the memory module. Be careful not to touch all those things. Even though I know I did discharge myself from the casing, you just gotta be extra careful. Those are delicate stuff. They're like babies. So I'll put that away. And here we go. We'll move on to the motherboard. I'll go ahead and unscrew. Careful, don't lose those screws. There's two. There's three. Okay, this one's tough to get out, but oh well. And here's the last screw. Okay, I think that screws out. One second. Tough. Okay, I'll go ahead and lift it up even though the screw's not out. So what you want to do is lift. Hold on. I got a stubborn one. Okay, I got that out. And basically once it's off, you just slide it away. You notice on the back casing, you slide it away because some of the back ports or the I/O connections, some of them are protruding through the holes. If you see, there's an I/O shield back here. They protrude out, so you gotta pull it that way, kind of like this. If you notice, the VGA sticks out. So yeah. So see how simple it is? There we go. Here's the motherboard. And the reason why I also left this on, it's much easier to work on disassembling the processor when it's out of the casing, because you notice there's walls around you, so it kind of obstructs your way of trying to get in there. So see, now it's much easier to remove that. So I'll put that out of the way. Okay, so now that we got the motherboard out of the way, we can go ahead and work on the rest of the stuff inside this case. I chose to remove the motherboard first because I didn't want to risk damaging any components from the motherboard, since there's a lot of integrated circuits in there. These ones are pretty much straightforward as well. Earlier I said we only need to remove one side of the panel, but now that we're going to remove the other parts, you notice that there's screws holding the drives in place. The access to the other screw is on the other side of the case, so which means we're going to have to remove this panel. And before we do that, let's go ahead, and since this is easy to take out, we'll go ahead and remove the power supply unit first. And basically you can see how the screws are sticking out here. Usually the thing that's holding them are 4 screws for a typical unit. Here's two on the top right there, and 2 on the bottom. So okay. Always start with the bottom screws first. Got those 2 screws, don't lose them. And once you start removing the top screws, make sure you have another hand in here supporting it, because it's basically going to release the power supply, and you could risk damaging it by falling into the bottom. So for the sake of the viewers, I'm going to hold it awkward. But normally I have to hold, I usually put it horizontal, but in this case I'll go ahead and do it a different way, just so you guys can see it clearly. And here's the last screw. So you notice it start to wiggle, and here it is. It comes off pretty easily right there. So you slide it away from the back and lower it. And there's the power supply unit. Simple. Now we'll go ahead and remove the other side of the panel. There's 2 screws, just identical to the other side. Okay, got that out of the way. There we go. Same thing as the other one, just slid it away from the front. Okay. Now you see the screws, they're all exposed on the other side of the drive. So what we can do right now is we'll go ahead and remove this side first. So later on we'll just work on the other side. Okay, got that side out of the way. Now the other side is the other sets of screws that are holding the devices in places. Let's remove this other side as well. As you can see, there goes the hard drive. And last 2 screws for the optical disk drive. Now you can just slide it out towards the back. Sometimes there's some tabs in there that kind of gets in the way. So you just gotta wiggle it gently, left and right. And there you go. Now it's released. There goes our optical disk drive. Okay, here we go. All empty. All bare. And all I needed was my handy Phillips screwdriver. I didn't even have to use any of the other tools. But I hope it helped you out, inspired you a little on working on computers. And stay tuned for my next video, which will be reassembly. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video and see you back soon.